Hello and welcome to Crime Beat Most Wanted. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight, 2 brazen daylight shootings and a suspect on the run. A young woman picking up her boyfriend after work is horrifically gunned down. Mid-afternoon, a man pulling into his driveway is executed by a hitman, leaving a neighborhood in fear. Daniel Tomassetti is one of Canada's most wanted suspects. Police say he's been on the run for more than 6 years. And tonight they are asking for your help in tracking him down. Here now is Karen Lieberman with the hunt for one of Canada's most wanted, Daniel Tomassetti.
It was March break. But we were out, and when we came home, it was about 7. It was a rainy day. And there was a police car at the front, and I said to my husband, "What did you do?" Like as a joke. The detectives were waiting for us. And they came to the door with Mila's picture. I didn't want to let them in. I said, "You got to tell me first," and then all hell broke loose.
It was March 14th, 2017, 1 week since the Barberi family of Vaughan, north of Toronto, celebrated their daughter Mila's 28th birthday.
Yeah, I recall that day. I can just picture it. It's always there in my head. You know, like a bad dream.
I got a phone call about a homicide that took place in Vaughan. At the time, we were told that there's a female deceased and a male victim who went to the hospital.
We're here by Highway 7 and Weston Road, where a shooting took place in broad daylight in this pretty much an industrial plaza. What we do know is that a woman in her 20s and a man in his 40s were both shot. The woman had the more serious injuries. She was rushed to hospital with no vital signs.
She was shot multiple times, so the cause of death is as a result of gunshots to her body. And the male victim, he was shot in the arm.
Investigators are looking at every possible avenue and are looking to speak with anyone who knows the individuals that were involved or anyone who can provide any information that may help.
Investigators quickly discover the identity of the victims.
A 28-year-old woman is dead, and the suspect is on the run after a daylight shooting in Woodbridge.
Her name is Mila Barberi. She just turned 28. She was there to pick up her boyfriend who was getting off work. He and his brother owned the business at that location.
The boyfriend, Severio Serrano, is rushed to hospital as investigators try to put a lens on what went down.
We got this video from the business where the boyfriend worked. It's situated just above the door. You have the boyfriend leaving the business. They're going to go see Mila. Mila's getting out because she loves the dog. That's why he brought the dog out. And they were just kind of hanging outside along the driver's side.
And then the unthinkable happens.
The gunman came out, walked up to the passenger side of the BMW, fired a couple shots, then came around and then went to the driver's side and then started shooting.
Mila's murder is captured on video, and so is the shooter.
That's him parking the Honda Civic. He's getting out from the driver's side. You can see it's a big man. We cannot tell what kind of ethnicity that person is because he's wearing a mask and he's wearing a jacket and gloves. And he's holding his gun in his right hand.
As York Regional Police try to piece together who did this and why, other police forces in the Greater Toronto area are dealing with a number of unusual incidents.
Around that time, we do have a lot of firebombing, shooting.
There was several murders in Toronto and York that were connected to traditional organized crime.
The most high profile, some 70 kilometers away in Hamilton.
She heard 6 gunshots, and then she went over with another neighbor, and they were going to try CPR, and then the police came.
So it was May 2nd 2017 that the Hamilton police received a call of a shooting in a nice subdivision in Waterdown. It happened at approximately between 3 and 4 p.m. He was shot 7 times through the window, side door.
Gunned down in his driveway with his wife and kids at home.
We had to find arrangements for her and the family. The house was the scene, essentially. We did have one piece of key evidence, which was their home surveillance system captured the shooting. We had to seize that right away. Word had got out who was murdered, Angelo Musitano.
I mean, it is a nice area, though.
Nice suburb of Hamilton. A couple of schools in the neighborhood, soccer fields, baseball parks.
And also, right here, the scene of a murder.
Yeah, a murder of a mob person that people wouldn't think is living in this neighborhood.
It's a violent end to Musitano's life, which has a storied criminal past. He was born into a notorious mafia crime family. Musitano and his brother Pat were charged with first-degree murder in the contract killing of mob boss Johnny Papalia. Musitano served 10 years in prison and was released in 2007.
I'm sure it's well recorded that Mr. Musitano did some jail time for 3 murders back in the 90s.
Now, do you believe that this was a targeted shooting?
Absolutely.
So what you're seeing here is the home surveillance system. Angelo Musitano arrives home driving this white Ford pickup truck. As he pulls in the driveway, he doesn't get out right away. He stays in his car, and at this time, we see the shooter running across the front lawn of the Musitanos' home and goes right up to the driver's side door and begins shooting. Angelo Musitano has no chance of getting out of the truck. The shooter then runs away, runs back to his car, and the car leaves from there. What you didn't see on video was after that, Angelo Musitano's wife comes out on the front porch hearing disturbance and calls out to Ange and runs over to the truck to find that he'd been shot, unfortunately.
A second brazen daytime shooting caught on video, and the suspect is shockingly familiar. On the hunt, 2 different homicide teams comb through hours of surveillance footage.
What we have is the black Honda Civic and also the Jeep Cherokee. They were just driving in tandem.
There was the maroon Ford Fusion, which was used in the shooting. We saw it circling the neighborhood, even I believe up to a day before.
In Waterdown, a neighbor helps.
A very switched on neighborhood person jotted the plates down. They saw these vehicles parking at the side of their house. They thought some drug dealing was going on. Now, because this person actually noted that car, noted the vehicles coming and going from that car, jotting the license plates down of all these vehicles associated to that car, it came back to the actual people who own those cars.
Well, Hamilton police are still at a loss for who killed Angelo Musitano. They say they now know that the gunman fled in a black Honda Civic like this one before ditching his getaway vehicle.
The driver of the Honda Civic gets into the passenger seat of the Jeep Cherokee, and they drive directly to Mila Barberi's crime scene, and the passenger of the Jeep Cherokee gets out and shoots Mila Barberi.
In both murders, a black Honda Civic.
So we did meet with York Homicide, and we shared information on both investigations to see if any were connected. Peter Chung from York said, "Do you guys have a black Honda that was involved in your murder?" And I said, "Yes." It was very much identical to the black Honda that we found in Waterdown, where that person said, "These cars are parking at the side of my house," and they got pictures of them and the license plate, and it was the same black Honda.
And they discover they have the same shooter.
The shooter had the same build, and again was completely covered head to toe, covering his face.
We believe that we're dealing with the same gunman.
2 high-profile brazen shootings.
Yeah.
Police would soon discover that these were planned hits with multiple suspects, including Daniel Tomassetti, one of Canada's most wanted. That's after the break. Welcome back to Crime Beat Most Wanted. I'm Tracy Tong. Tonight, police are on the hunt for one of Canada's most wanted, Daniel Tomassetti. Take a good look. He is described as about 5'4" or 162 centimeters. He has brown hair, blue eyes, and weighs around 145 pounds or 66 kilograms. He is wanted for 2 counts of first-degree murder and attempted murder. We now return to Karen Lieberman and the hunt for most wanted, Daniel Tomassetti.
So
This is Mila. She loved her elephants, Disney Princess, Midas, the bears from Jungle Book. She loved trees. She was a vet technician. She loved all kinds of animals, yeah. And this is her with Midas. And he was always with her, always. She loved him so much.
She was my firstborn. I was there at the hospital when she was born. Beautiful girl, very loving, very caring, very independent. She taught herself how to ride a bike.
She had a purpose here on earth, you know, just to bring happiness to everybody. Always tried to fix people. It kind of was like her mission, you know. Always gave people a second chance. And unfortunately, you know, her last boyfriend too, she just always gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Investigators are connecting the deadly shooting of notorious Angelo Musitano and young Mila Barberi. Detectives learned the family had concerns about who Mila had been dating.
She was dating a member of the Serrano family. Severio Serrano himself had no criminal record, wasn't known to police other than the association for his family.
His father, Diego Serrano, was a convicted trafficker. Although not named by police as a mafia member, they described him as a facilitator for the mafia when he was arrested.
Him and his brother owned the lighting store where the shooting took place.
The Serrano family is known to the police and have had connections in the past to organized crime groups.
You were worried about her?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, every night I would go with something in the pit of my stomach. This is not right, this is not right.
That's where the shooting happened. Our victim, her BMW, is already parked in the parking lot.
Her attackers had been stalking the location.
We were able to capture them here driving by. This is not the first time. They were there a little bit earlier.
And so that tells you it was a planned shooting.
2 months later, over in Hamilton, there is little doubt that Angelo Musitano was targeted.
He's a well-known Italian traditional organized crime mafia in Hamilton, obviously. That goes back to him and his brother, Pat. Pat Musitano, of course, was considered the boss of the Musitano crime family. His younger brother was Angelo. They both went away to prison for a time back when they were convicted with their involvement in the murder of Johnny Papalia, who was another Hamilton mafia figure, and Carm Barillero, who was from Niagara Falls.
Hamilton has a very long history of mafia, but it had been very quiet in the 2000s for a long time. And then when Angelo Musitano was murdered in his driveway in Waterdown, it shocked everybody.
In a surprise turn of events, police get help with the case from Musitano himself.
When Angelo Musitano was murdered and they went to do the autopsy, they found a note in his pocket that had a license plate on it, and it was one of the cars that had been surveilling him.
In our own way, we think that Angelo might have been looking over his shoulder. There was the maroon Ford Fusion, which was used in the shooting. We saw it circling the neighborhood. We really got our lucky break when we found the vehicle. It was located several days later, abandoned, in that Waterdown Flamborough neighborhood. The license plate was still on the car. The plates obviously were stolen.
But thanks to a neighbor taking pictures of cars that met up with the Ford Fusion, they identify a suspect.
So that led us to the actual cars that they felt were their clean cars, registered to their names, and that led us to Jabril Abdallah. We knew that Jabril was not the actual shooter in Angelo Musitano. He just didn't fit the build and the size from what you saw on the video camera.
When police tow Angelo Musitano's white truck in for forensics, they discover just how calculated this hit was.
We took it down to the police station bay, and there was a tracking device found underneath the vehicle.
So there were actually trackers that had been installed on victims' cars as part of the really sophisticated surveillance that was happening before the murders.
This tracker would lead detectives to a second suspect.
When we did go to the store where the tracking device was purchased, we went with search warrants. The tracking devices were purchased by people using their real name. Once we got that name, it led us to a Michael Cudmore. He also did very much fit the build and stature of the shooter.
And when the forensic team swabs the Ford Fusion's interior for DNA, it's his.
Michael Cudmore was a very well-known violent criminal, repeat offender, somebody who rubbed shoulders with mobsters and bikers and did all their dirty work.
Hamilton, they have identified Michael Cudmore as the shooter in their investigation. And when I look at the video evidence that they have, and through the way that he moved and his stature, I believe that Michael Cudmore is also responsible for our shooting.
Police hold a press conference to disclose a person of interest.
Investigators from both York and Hamilton now wish to release a surveillance photo of a person of interest who they believe participated in the surveillance of Angelo Musitano and Mila Barberi.
They held a press conference, showed photographs of security footage from the shopping center where the tracking devices were purchased. And one of them was Daniel Tomassetti walking down the hall.
Daniel Tomassetti is from Ancaster. He was somebody who didn't have a criminal record. He had a travel business and he worked in fitness. He was a high school friend of Jabril Abdullah's. What police have said is that Tomassetti did have some criminal associates, and that's where the connection was made in terms of allegedly them being hired to carry out these murders.
The purchasing of the GPS trackers put Tomassetti on the radar, but they also bring more mystery to the killing of Mila Barberi.
There was no tracker on any of the vehicles in the Barberi case, right? But they found there was an Italian restaurant near the lighting store that the Serranos like to go to, and it was a BMW that looked, not only did it look similar, but it was a similar license plate. And they found a tracker on that car.
So who were the hitmen actually targeting?
What was known is that his brother, Francesco, who was known more to police, his driver's license had been suspended. So he was borrowing his brother's car, and because he couldn't drive, he often sat on the passenger side.
You can see the gunman, he went straight directly toward the passenger side, and a couple shots were fired into the front passenger seat. I think afterward he realized nobody was sitting in the car. I suspect that he probably didn't even see Mila was standing behind.
The shooter comes out and she's just unfortunately hit in the crossfire, and a completely innocent bystander.
Still unsure of who was being targeted, police move on to finding those responsible.
Investigators arrested Jabril Abdullah of Hamilton on Wednesday and have put out warrants for the arrest of Michael Cudmore and Daniel Tomassetti, allegedly involved in the planning and murder of both victims.
All three were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempt murder.
As police gear up to make further arrests, the manhunt goes international.
Daniel Tomassetti left his phone at home and used a different car and traveled to the airport, flew to Mexico, to Cancun, and he had a return flight booked, and he never got a return flight.
We knew that Michael was down there. We had made a connection with his family who lived here. One sibling told us that Michael had been calling him from Mexico and telling him he moved down there and he was living a good life.
3 years after Mila's murder, accused triggerman Michael Cudmore is located, but not the way investigators had hoped.
We were making attempts to look for him, and it was shortly after that he was found dead in Mexico. The circumstances around his death, he was just found in a vehicle, but it was inconclusive from the pathologist here. I can't say that he was murdered for sure. We just know that he died.
With 1 arrested and 1 dead, police focused the manhunt on Daniel Tomassetti and put out a sizable reward. In the heart of Toronto, police announced they're upping the ante in the hunt for Daniel Tomassetti.
Today, your world gets smaller. We won't give up, and we will find you.
We just recently had Daniel Tomassetti put on Bolo's top 25 most wanted. They can amplify his whereabouts through means that we don't have access to. They can up a reward to help the police out if the reward is enhanced a bit. That's huge incentive for some people. In this day and age, everybody's on their phone, everybody's on social media. Bolo really has that niche to get in there. We have had tips come in. We've had sightings in Tomassetti out west, actually, in this country. We had sightings down in some Caribbean islands. So tips have come in, and we follow them all up, and they've just all proved negative.
It's been 6 years. Jabril Abdullah pled guilty to the lesser charge of participating in a criminal organization.
Put an end to this, find Daniel Tomassetti, and may I say something to Daniel?
You absolutely can.
Daniel, if you ever watch this, come home. I don't think you have a good life. You must be having a very sore neck, watching over your back all the time. You have to pay for what you did. You know what you did.
You know, and this didn't have to happen to her. It shouldn't have happened to her. She didn't deserve it.
1 month after Mila's murder, family and friends released balloons into the sky. And at a memorial in her honor, they held sunflowers. They were her favorite.
She would always bring me sunflowers, and now it just became, you know, I have them out. Alessio plants in the garden. He just plants all the sunflowers. She loved yellow. It's so bright. It's just who she was. Tall and bright, and just the way she was, you know, yeah. If it's such a heaven, she's up there, yep, surrounded by all the trees, with Midas, and the lakes, the waters, the flowers. Just, I hope she's at peace, you know?
My last words to Midas, her dog, when we had to unfortunately put him down is, don't worry, you're gonna go to sleep, wake up, Mila's gonna be there. But if there's a heaven, she's there looking after God's creatures with Midas on her side and happy running around in the woods.
Here is one last look at Daniel Tomassetti. If you have any information on his whereabouts, call Crime Stoppers. A reminder, it's anonymous, and there is a reward for tips that lead to his arrest. I'm Tracy Tong. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat Most Wanted. See you next time.
For more from Crime Beat, there are over 80 episodes of the Crime Beat podcast available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.